now.
Welcome to Getaway Day. I'm Gautam, joined by Mason, and today is episode 27 and episode 1 of the postseason. We're going to be here with you all month long, breaking down postseason games, previewing series, and matchups throughout the month. We're planning on doing approximately 2 to 3 episodes per week, so trying out some different formats of podcasting, and hope you join us the whole way through.
We plan on making them a little bit shorter than the hour and 15 that we're usually pushing.
And if you do enjoy our podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and YouTube to make sure you don't miss any of our episodes. Make sure you let us know your thoughts in the comments or leave a review on Apple Podcasts, or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Getaway Day Pod if you can access Facebook.
Yeah, that was a pain today. I would say during the postseason, make sure you do follow us on our socials. With the schedule being kind of in flux depending on games and how each series goes, we might a lot of the information about when we're going to be streaming throughout each week is going to be posted on our socials. So,
all right, let's just dive straight into it. We're going to start with the AL wildcard game, which is coming up on Tuesday between the Yankees and the Red Sox at Fenway Park. It starts at 8:08 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. Before we get into that, just a quick recap on what happened at the conclusion of the regular season. So the Yankees, they won on a walk-off by Aaron Judge, little ground ball up the middle, scoring a run in the bottom of the ninth inning, 1-0 against the Rays. Then the Red Sox came back from a 5-1 deficit in D.C., backed by a 2-home run game by Rafael Devers, including a tie-breaking shot in the ninth inning. So they were able to, both those two teams were able to seal up the wild card bids, and the Jays also won on Sunday, but sadly that was not enough because they needed a loss from either the Red Sox or the Yankees to force a game 163. So we didn't have that kind of drama, but we know that the Jays and the Mariners, who also finished just a game behind the Jays, will definitely be back going forward.
Yeah, and rookie starter for the Angels, Reed Detmers, made sure that the Mariners didn't really care who else won or lost. I think the Mariners ended up losing, was it like 7-4?
Yeah, it was like 8-4 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess it didn't really matter since the Yankees and the Red Sox won.
Yeah, so none of the turmoil in the AL that we were hoping would happen. Is I spent Lord knows how long, maybe like an hour and a half just trying to digest the different tiebreaker scenarios before going to the Cardinal game on Sunday, just because I'm scoreboard watching. And
you're a better man than I didn't even try. It was like, this is way too complicated. If it actually happens, I'll figure out what's going on.
So I almost got it. The only part that was confusing me was in each scenario who got which seed and who got to pick which thing. The craziest thing would have been a 3-way tie, not a 4-way tie, which that amazed me. I assumed a 4-way tie would have been the craziest, but oh well.
But here we are, Yankees and Red Sox. So both 92 and 70. Yankees have a plus 42 run differential. Yankees have a plus 80 run differential. I will point out that the Jays had a run differential that was greater than the Yankees and the Red Sox combined. So I think all the AL contenders are kind of sighing in relief that they don't have to play the Jays, because that would have been a scary team in the playoffs.
Yes, it was a scary team in the second half, and there was 81 games in the second half. So 1-game playoff, that would have been absolutely horrifying for either one of these teams.
Yeah. Regardless, I think we have a really good matchup on our hands. Obviously, Yankees and Red Sox, huge rivals, have a lot of familiarity with each other. The Red Sox won the season series. That's why the game's taking place in Fenway. They won 10 out of the 19 games. The starting pitchers, Nate Eovaldi versus Garrett Cole. So Eovaldi had a really nice season. He actually led the major leagues in FIP with the 279. The American League, I'll say. He had a 375 ERA, 195 strikeouts in 182 and a third innings pitch. And then everyone knows Garrett Cole, just doing his normal Garrett Cole stuff. Had a really good season, 323 ERA and 181 and a third innings pitch with 243 strikeouts. He's got a ton of postseason experience. He's pitched 84 innings, including one wild card game start back in 2015.
Yeah, so this is definitely an interesting matchup just from postseason experience for both these guys because, as you mentioned, Cole has thrown 84 innings in the postseason. 5 of his starts have actually come in winner go home games. He's pitched the most winner go home games out of any player active in the majors. And then Nathan Eovaldi is also not new to the whole postseason thing. He was one of the 2018 world champion Boston Red Sox postseason heroes. He was dominant in that World Series. I think he
actually saved the team in the World Series. He pitched in that 18 inning Game 3 in relief. He pitched 6 innings in a game they ended up losing, but still,
but saved their
obviously
bullpen.
saved the bullpen. Yeah,
yeah, but
they went on to win that series.
He had a 1.61 ERA and 22 and a third innings pitched in the 2018 playoffs. So he's played in big games. Cole has played in big games, and both of these guys know what needs to be done. And I expect them to be pretty locked in, at least mentally. We'll see what happens mechanically, but
yeah. Speaking of mechanically, the Red Sox could be down one of their key contributors. When JD Martinez was running in from the outfield in DC during yesterday's game, he apparently tripped over the second base bag and sprained his ankle and had to be removed from the game. His status, his availability for Tuesday's game is unclear. Very unfortunate incident, and that could be a big blow for the Red Sox.
Yeah, that's going to be huge if he doesn't end up playing. Luckily, they aren't going to be entirely without power because they do have Kyle Schwarber, who will probably just slot in there in left field for him. But it's the postseason right now. All hands on deck. You can't have a guy going down with an injury as funny as that. That's the baseball equivalent of slipping on a banana peel.
Yeah, and this is why DHs get a bad rap for being unathletic. They don't even go on the field. Then the one time he actually goes on the field, he comes up with this injury.
Yeah.
But
did you have another point on him?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, but the Red Sox are not the only team that's going to be dealing with an injury here. The Yankees have plenty of injuries on their own. They're down Luke Voit, DJ LeMahieu, Miguel Andujar, who I believe has been out for a very long time. And so their infield is pretty well depleted right now. They'll slot Rizzo in at first. I assume probably Rugi at second. They'll have Glaber at short and Gio Urshela at third. Andrew Velasquez could potentially also play at short. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But if I just look at that lineup prior to this game, I'm not terribly scared by the infield. Rizzo is going to be a pain in the butt for any pitcher at any point in time. The outfield is, I would expect to mash, but that middle infield, and quite frankly, even their catchers, is probably the weak spot in that lineup that I see.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'll add one more name to the injured list. So, well, he's not technically on the injured list, but he's definitely banged up. So Urshela has been playing a little bit of shortstop, and they've actually slid Glaber over to second base for a lot of games. In yesterday's game, Urshela was running over from the shortstop position towards the third base dugout to catch a pop-up. He catches it, and he's running full speed towards the the stairs of the dugout, and he catches the ball and he goes straight into the dugout and bangs himself on the bench. So uh, he's dealing with that injury as
So
well.
yeah, that I understand. That's a great play that potentially saved that game for the Yankees in a way. I mean, it was foul ball, so it would have just been a foul ball, but getting the out is huge in that case. I would like to mention, have you watched that back? Like, have you watched that
I
on highlights?
I just saw it once.
Go watch it and watch the ump. The ump leaned over the railing to see if he caught it instead of walking down the stairs and fell over the railing himself.
Oh my god!
It was funny.
So there were all kinds of injuries yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely point well taken about that bottom half of the lineup not being quite as strong. Obviously, Judge and Stanton have been mashing recently, kind of been carrying the team. But once you get down to the kind of Brett Gardner, Gary Sanchez, Urshela region of the lineup, it's not really anything to be too scared about. On the other hand, though, the Red Sox, they have been mashing and putting up tons of runs, and that's one thing that's been consistent for them for most of the season.
Yeah, Devers has been really, really good this year. Kyle Schwarber has been on a tear, almost as good as that tear where he was hitting like 2 home runs every single like inning for like the entire month of what was that, July?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it seemed like every time he was up, or even when he was just sitting on the bench, he somehow still hit a home run. It made no sense, but he's playing at almost that level again, it seems. And then a guy that made our underrated list for this year, Kike Hernandez. He's been good. He's been a huge part of this team. Look for him to keep playing well. Yeah, so this is definitely going to be a really interesting matchup. I think, in my opinion, the lineups are pretty equal. I definitely think there's a couple shortcomings for the Red Sox in the lineup. Christian Vasquez is not really that big of an offensive catcher, at least not to me. But let's see who's playing second for them right now too, because Kike's center.
Um, that's a good question because Jose Iglesias not eligible for the postseason, so uh, really don't know.
Let me get their depth chart pulled up here real quick. But that's a good point there too. Um, that Jose Iglesias is not postseason eligible. It looks like Christian Arroyo is their primary second baseman. I'm not terribly familiar with Christian Arroyo, but I would probably say him, Christian Vasquez. They're not exactly terrifying to me in a lineup.
Right, but
But
those
the
are just
rest,
that's the bottom of the lineup. The rest of the lineup's pretty strong.
well,
With
I was trying to make the parallel there that it's basically the exact same thing we just said about the Yankees. Like that bottom end of the order, but the rest of
yeah,
it mashes.
right.
So I don't really see a big edge there. What about their bullpen though?
Yeah, so for me, the bullpen strongly favors the Yankees. Um, the Red Sox have had all kinds of problems with their bullpen this season. Matt Barnes was really good at the beginning of the year, but then he kind of really fell off. They've kind of gone through a bunch of different closers. Ottavino's been kind of on and off. Um, they've tried Garrett Richards. Hansel Robles was getting the saves near the end of the season. So um, really no like ace kind of reliever that they have. The best kind of guy that they have, I know that Alex Cora trusts is Garrett Whitlock, who was actually a Rule 5 pick this season from the Yankees. And he's actually pitched um, 70, 73 and a third innings to a 196 ERA. So I think he's going to play a role in this game for sure. Um, Similarly, on the Yankee side, their kind of bullpen ace that has gone super unheralded this season, but he's really kept that bullpen together when Chapman was having the issues and was injured and things. Jonathan Loizaga, 2.17 ERA and 70 and 2/3 innings pitched. So I think those are like the first guys that are going to come in to relieve Cole and Evaldi in this game.
Yeah. So, I guess in your opinion, there, if I missed it, sorry, but who do you give the edge,
I
bullpen
give the
wise?
overall edge to the Yankees because they have Chapman as probably the best available reliever to either team, and then just the overall depth of the bullpen with Chad Green, Loizaga, um, and yeah, I just feel like they're the better overall group.
Yeah. All right. Um, yeah. So, the one other note that I had kind of noticed, it's not, or the one other thing I had here, um, not so much roster building or on field play or anything, but I saw a quote from Alex Cora today that kind of was speaking to the current mindset of the Red Sox. And I read it and I'm not sure how to interpret it. So I'm going to read it first and then I'll tell you how I interpreted it. And then I want to get your opinion. So Alex Cora, when asked on who the 2021 Red Sox are, quote, first things first, they're very talented. On any night, we can beat anyone we play. At the same time, we're not perfect. We know it. The last few days in Washington were very similar to early in the season. End quote. So postseason baseball is a big mental thing. It's who can stay in it when they go down to potentially tie the game in the ninth, tie the game in the 10th, and walk it off in the 11th, the game 6 of the World Series. You can't do that if you're in a bad mindset. You have to be in it as far as I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know who's going to do it, but we're going to do it. And that quote from Alex Cora was interesting to me because the beginning of the season, Boston was struggling, right? Or was the
No,
beginning of the season their hot streak?
I think that's what the point he's trying to make is that beginning of the season they had a ton of come from behind wins. They were on top, and then recently they gave up the division lead. They almost blew the wild card lead. So he's saying that this last series is kind of getting back to what they were doing really well in the first half. So
Okay. So that's the part that I was missing there because I was reading it almost like we've sort of lost our way mentally, not sure if we've quite got it back is how I had read the quote. But no, if he's basically saying that we were there and now we're back, awesome. That's what we want to see.
yeah, I think that's what he was going for there.
Yeah. So I guess I don't want to necessarily pick who I think is going to win the wild card game because it's the wild card game. We know that it never goes the way we think it's going to. There's going to be something crazy that happens. Some person or some individual player that's going to be huge in this game that you maybe wouldn't expect, or it might not even be a player. It could be a bad call. It could be anything. What is kind of if you had to put $5 of house money on some completely random happenstance to happen during this game, what do you think you'd put that money on?
All right, I'm gonna go with this one because um, a lot of Yankees fans I think will be really shocked if it happened. I mean, I think this game's most likely going to play out with Cole pitching really well. That's pretty like easy to see happening. He's a really great pitcher, but I think Gary Sanchez is going to hit a home run. So
That's one that I
my
was
pick.
actually thinking about. So let me see if I could think of something different there. I don't know. I think that it's gonna come down to. I think we're gonna see one of Boston's like other rotation mates get in this game outside of Eovaldi. I would put money on maybe someone like a Tanner Houck getting in late in the game. So I think
Yeah,
that's what
I
I
can
would
see
do.
it. And just yesterday they used Eduardo Rodriguez for an inning. They used Pivetta to close the game out, so they're no strangers to using starters in
Yeah.
unconventional roles.
And
So
and this is a
I like
big
that call.
game. This is a big game, and Tanner Houck in his 13 starts has been really solid for this Red Sox team. So that's what I'm putting my $5 a house money on. Tanner Houck making it into the game.
Alrighty. All right, let's move on to Wednesday's NL wildcard game between the Cardinals and the Dodgers. Wednesday, 8:10 p.m. on TBS. So to recap the end of the season, it was almost a catastrophe for the Dodgers and the Giants um, on Sunday if the two teams had ended up uh, tying in record, because then they would have had to play a game 163, which would have put the loser of the game 163 at a severe disadvantage in the wild card game, because then they wouldn't have had their choice of their top pitcher to pitch the wild card game. As it turns out, the Giants won on Sunday, and leaving the Dodgers one game behind them. So the Dodgers are now playing this game, and they get Max Scherzer.
Yeah, so I was actually thinking about this because I had been obviously with the Cardinals playing in it. I was hoping for the most chaos possible, which would have been a
Right.
game 163. And then I started thinking about it. And while, yes, game 163 would have been great for the Cardinals, 163 in any way, shape, or form would have been the absolute worst case scenario for the Dodgers, even worse than for the Giants, because
Correct.
game 163 would have been Scherzer's day. To try and get them just directly into the NLDS. They basically have to win that because you don't want to end up in this one game. But then if they lost and they ended up playing in the one game playoff, they're screwed because Buehler pitched the day before, so he'd be on short rest. Arias pitched the day before that, so he'd be on short rest. Pretty close, I think, to full. I think he'd be like 1 day short.
Yeah.
Um,
That would have probably been their best option, but
yeah, it would have been
if they didn't
Kershaw's
want to do
day.
short rest, then
It
they would
would
have to
have
go with bullpen game or Tony Gonsolin.
Yeah, it would have been Kershaw's day, had it not been Scherzer, but he ended up on the IL, meaning the only guy on full rest was Tony Gonsolin.
Yeah.
So that would have been the absolute worst case scenario that the Dodgers could have hoped for. Granted, Tony Gonsolin, really good pitcher, but not who you would want on the mound in that situation.
Probably not your first, second, or third choice to start that game.
Or fourth. I think he would be my fifth option. I'm very comfortable with him. If I was not involved in this game at all, if I were like a Pirates fan watching this series, and it's like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily be afraid of throwing him in this game if I were a Pirates fan put in Dave Roberts' position. Very competent guy. He's just young. He has no postseason experience. This is a huge game. You want a Cy Young candidate, and he's the fifth best pitcher on that rotation. So, whereas I think with the Giants, they have Gosman used up and they have Webb used up, but I think that probably they still have their third best guy, which is Desclafani, maybe.
Yeah, they don't have very good options after the top two, so it wouldn't have been great for them either.
Yeah.
They had lost game 163. But as it stands, we do end up with the ideal pitching matchup as a baseball fan, which is Adam Wainwright and Max Scherzer. Just like the other series, which is also a good pitching match. So this is the way that the wild card game should be. It should be the best against the best, and that's what we're going to get. So obviously, we talked a lot of Wainwright and talked a lot of Scherzer on this podcast all season long. Just to give you the numbers again, Wainwright this season, 3.05 ERA, 3.66 FIP, 105 WHIP, 174 strikeouts in 206 and a third innings. And then Scherzer, 2.46 ERA, 2.97 FIP, 0.864 WHIP, 236 strikeouts and 179 and a third innings pitched.
Yeah. So for those of you keeping score, that's a probable Cy Young versus a guy who's going to get his first Cy Young votes in 8 years. So
yeah,
pretty good matchup.
Pretty good matchup. Definitely guys that are near the top of their games. I will point out that Scherzer has had 2 rocky starts in his last 2 starts of the season. One was at Colorado, so I kind of discount that. But he gave up 5 earned runs and 11 hits against the Padres in his last start. So
Yeah, Scherzer.
probably doesn't mean anything for Scherzer, but just wanted to make note of that.
Yeah,
Um,
it is definitely one of those that makes you look at it just a little bit harder because in his last 10 and a third innings, he's given up 10 earned runs after giving up like 3 earned runs in his first 9 starts with the Dodgers.
yeah, yeah,
So, it just if you're on the overreaction train, your thought is going to be it's exhaustion. His arm just can't hold up to it. Don't listen to that. It's Max Scherzer. He'll be fine. Which
yeah.
makes me sad because now we have to face a Scherzer who's going to be mad that he's given up 10 runs in 10 innings. So we're probably going to be no hit until he comes out of the game. So, um, but yeah, no. And then these 2 starters though both have extensive postseason resumes. They have pitched nearly identical amounts of innings in the postseason. Wainwright at 109 innings pitched. It would have been more had he not had Tommy John back in 2011 and missed that entire postseason. But he was with the team, so he's got bench experience in the postseason. Scherzer has 112 innings pitched. Wainwright is actually winning the ERA battle there with a 2.89 postseason ERA in his career versus a 3.38 for Scherzer. So both these guys pitch big time in big time games. They have a lot of experience in those big time games. This is the single best matchup that we could have asked for a wild card game, I think, as far as pitchers are concerned. So
Yeah, no question about it. And I did find it pretty interesting that they have so many innings and they were so similar in the totals there.
yeah,
So let's see, this game's playing out kind of the way people expect it to, kind of low scoring to start off because both pitchers are going to probably pitch well. Um, but Wainwright's coming up on his pitch count sometime in the 5th inning, we'll say, middle of the 5th inning. He's got, 90 pitches or something. Who's warming up in the bullpen? I feel good read on this. You watch all the Cardinals games. Who does Mike Schilt trust?
yeah. So this is actually interesting that you asked this because John Boy asked this on Twitter today, and so I decided to reply and just put myself through the thought experiment anyway. He had asked if Wainwright went 6, who would be the roadmap? If Wainwright only went 3, who would be the roadmap? So if Waino goes 6, I think that we're going to see a combo of 3 of the following 4 guys. We're going to see TJ McFarland. We're going to see Luis Garcia. We're going to see Giovanni Gallegos. And we're going to see Genesis Cabrera. I think Cabrera is the least likely out of those.
Reyes?
No. Alex Reyes will not be in the plans for holding this game with 3 pitchers today. The last couple weeks, he's been pretty rocky again. Getting himself into some situations. They've been putting him into a little bit less high leverage situations recently. They have been trying him as more of a multi-inning guy. So I do think if Waino comes out early, we see 2 innings of Alex Reyes. But as a back into the bullpen, I don't see it for the wild card game. When we get into the division series, if the Cardinals make it, yeah, then Reyes is probably going to play into that final 3 for about half the games. But I don't think for this particular game he will. So, but then if in that situation that the Cardinals have to cover 6, I also thought that we would see Jack Flaherty come in for an inning. Similar to kind of what Wainwright did in the 2015 NLDS. You and I were at the Cardinal Cubs first game of that series, and Waino came in the 8th inning, I believe, and pitched a scoreless inning there. I think we could see that same thing from Jack in the wild card game.
Yeah, and I know Flaherty pitched on Sunday, and he looked the best that he has since he's come off the injured list.
Yep.
Topping out at 95, so he'll definitely be available for this game.
Yeah, and yeah, that's the other part of it is like he's only had a couple of starts. So the first one that he threw 16 pitches and only got a third of an inning and stuff. And if you only looked at his line, you're like, oh, that's not looking good. He didn't get any rehab starts. No rehab work at all. He came straight off the IL and went to the big league club. So they were using the last bit of the season there as his rehab. So bringing him in low leverage, letting him throw pitches, but taking him out basically after he got 3 batters faced. And then trying to extend him a little bit more. On Sunday, he got a full inning, and he looked great. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the Dodgers, on the other hand, I feel pretty good about their bullpen actually, and I like the fact that they are pretty well rested. Actually, none of their big guys have pitched at all on Saturday or Sunday, so they're all very fresh. Kenley Jansen, Blake Trinan having an amazing season. Left-handed pitcher Alex Vesia, Corey Knebel, Brusdar Graterol. So they've got all these guys at their disposal, and you would expect Scherzer to go relatively deep into the game anyway. So it's not like they have a lot of innings to cover.
Yeah, so I definitely think if you were to look at, on paper, at these two rosters, the Dodgers have the clear advantage in every facet of the game. I mean, just they do. They're clearly the better team.
You could say that versus any other team in the league, basically.
Exactly. Like they don't deserve to be in the wild card game. They deserve to be in a full series, but that's not how baseball works. So they got screwed. They didn't win their division, even though they won their final 7 games. They tried their darndest to win that division, and the Cards just didn't fall. They got unlucky, got a 1-game draw against the Cardinals. But on paper, they should 100% win this game. But then you start looking a little deeper and you start seeing the injuries. There's not many, but there's some key ones. So the Cardinals, about a week ago, lost Edmundo Sosa on a hit by pitch to the wrist. He was out for like 4 or 5 days, and then he came in and he was kind of gingerly on it. Well, he's now back, full strength. He's back for the Cardinals, which is huge. Big shot in the arm for that lineup, which was already clicking here the last month anyway, as evidenced by the 17-game winning streak. And then the Dodgers lose their best hitter in Max Muncy. So I think he had a leg injury on Sunday.
It was his elbow. He got run into at first base on the runner was running down the first base line, ran into him.
Okay.
So he's not going to play in the wild card game. Very unlikely he would even play in the next series. That's a big blow for them. Just wanted to go back to what you were saying about the Cardinals clicking, which they definitely are. 7th highest WRC plus as a team since September 1st, but the Dodgers are 8th. They're clicking just as much as the Cardinals.
Yeah.
And some of these players that have been doing it, leading the team. So Tyler O'Neill, Paul Goldschmidt, Harrison Bader.
Player of the month for the NL, Tyler O'Neill. Put some respect on that name, Gotham.
So, yeah, they've been killing it for the Cardinals. Just these WRC pluses are out of this world. O'Neill with the 191, Goldschmidt right behind him with the 189, and Bader at 163 since September 1st. And then on the Dodgers side, Corey Seager's number 1 in WRC plus since September 1st with the 210, and Trey Turner's 10th with the 177. So they've had some really hot hitters.
Yeah. Yeah, like...
But losing Muncy hurt.
This is a great matchup, which if you asked me 2 months ago, I would thought that this was a horrible matchup. Like, the Cardinals managed to squeak in and aren't good at all. But as you mentioned, there's career years, not just elite Septembers for O'Neill and Bader, career years for these two. And then throw in Goldie, and this team is really good. They had a lot of issues early in the season, just with injuries and all that. Now they're clicking. They look like a top 10 team. Like, if I think they could have played this way longer in the season. It just didn't work out that way this particular year. So I do think this is a great matchup. I think even with Muncy out, The Dodgers are still incredibly dangerous and still the favorites in the game. I am obviously I'm biased. I really hope the Cardinals win this game, but it's going to be so fun to watch. So,
Yeah, agreed there. And bring up this one point. I hate to bring this point up, but behind the plate for the game on Wednesday will be the soon to be retiring longtime umpire Joe West.
singing cowboy Joe West.
So
Ugh.
hopefully he doesn't play much of a role. Hopefully we don't hear his name too many times, but I feel like we will because that's the way Joe rolls.
So, before we get to the what's your house money going on, because I think I kind of have an idea what it's going to be. I know what mine is, and if yours isn't the same, I'll be a little shocked. But like I was saying earlier, the Dodgers don't really deserve to be in a one-game wild card playoff. If they lose,
Yeah.
what's the public discourse gonna be here? Because
Yeah, that's like the okay. I'm gonna preface this by saying I hate the Cardinals. If you know anything about me, you know that I hate the Cardinals. But I'd be
what?
saying the same thing. No, I'd be saying the exact same thing no matter who they were playing, and if they lost, um, I just hate the idea that the Dodgers failed in any way if they lose this game because they're literally the greatest second place team in the history of baseball. They're the only team that's had this many wins to ever play in a wild card game. Um, they're by no means has this season been a failure in any way. One
Yeah.
game doesn't change that at all.
Yeah, it's literally just luck of the draw. And quite frankly, if you look at the teams in this postseason, the team that probably most deserves to be in the wild card game is just straight in the division series, and that's the Atlanta Braves. Like they got good at the right times to be able to keep their division, but they're probably the weakest team that's in this playoff field right now. So, if anything, they should be in the division or in the wild card game, but whenever you start getting into realigning the playoffs, which I think is what the discourse is going to be, starts getting really tricky because do you go with there's 6 teams total? There's going to be a representative from each division, and then, well, I guess it'd be 5 teams total. Representative from each division, 2 wildcard teams, but then the seeding is based entirely on record, and you could have a division winner playing in the wildcard game. That is going to have its own issues, and people are going to be equally pissed off. So it's like the devil you have or the devil you don't is kind of what it's going to ultimately come down to. So I do think that's what the discourse will be if the Dodgers lose. If the Dodgers win, it probably would be the same discourse and probably should be just because they're the best second place team ever, the best wild card team ever, defending world champions. But yeah. So I guess with that being said, $5 house money. What are you putting it on?
All right, so beginning of the season, when I heard that there was a guy named Lars Nootbaar, I'm not going to pick Lars Nootbaar here, but I was like, this is the Cardinals Devil
You
Magic guy. He's definitely going to come through in some huge situation.
you were right.
But I think the actual Cardinals Devil Magic guy is Jose Rondon, and I think he's going to have a big pinch hit in this game.
I like that pick. That's actually a really good pick. He's done it more
He's
than a
been
couple
killing
times.
it in the second half off the bench
Yes, he has.
when he's never been good at any point in his career.
Like
His
3 pinch
pretty
hit home
brief,
runs.
yeah, something like that. And I think he's hit like well over 300 in the second half off the bench for the most part, and he just seems like he's going to do something.
Yeah, I that's a really good pick. I think Nootbaar would also be a really good pick. I'm actually gonna go with not a player on either roster being the game changer. I unfortunately would put my money on Joe West blowing a call that changes the outcome of this game.
Oh no!
I've seen it happen enough times, and the wild card is crazy. There's gonna be some weird infield fly rule that the umps can't figure out. Like, well, that would have been my guess, but That happened 2 weeks ago. So now it's going to be some other stupid rule, but they're going to blow it, and it's going to change the outcome of the game one way or the other and swing the momentum. I couldn't tell you who it's going to benefit. Not even going to try and guess. With the devil magic, if I had to guess, I would guess it probably benefits the Cardinals just because devil magic. We sacrificed a Cub, I think, about 3 days ago. So
How does that work out? That seems unfair.
why do you think we got Matt Caesar? Duh. uh, no, but yeah,
well, I very much hope you're wrong, but
I
I
also
think it's
hope
still
I'm
going to be a
wrong.
good game regardless.
I also hope I'm wrong, because if that ends up being the thing that does it for either team, that might actually be bigger discourse than just redesigning the postseason entirely.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah. So hope we got you in the right mindset to watch these games on Tuesday and Wednesday. I am certainly looking forward to it. Um, we are going to be back here on Wednesday to discuss that AL wildcard game and then get ready for the AL division series.
oh
So
yeah.
we will talk to you then.
And then just a little bit of housekeeping. We will also be back on Thursday to talk NL. So, like I said, we will be podcasting a lot more often here in the postseason. A little bit shorter, but make sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter so that you know when we're going to go live, when we're going to be posting stuff onto Spotify, YouTube, all that stuff, or all that good stuff. And yeah, if you like our content, please subscribe to it. Let us know. Share it with your friends. We've really, really enjoyed these last 27 episodes, sharing our opinions with you guys. And it means a lot to us that you do follow us and listen to us. So thank you. So, and we will see you on Wednesday.